All right, tonight here we're with Bob Young, our Northville High School tennis coach. Northville has had a successful program over the last few years with him at the helm. And last year they finished second in the state. We're going to pepper him with some questions tonight and see how he responds. Welcome to the show, Bob.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So tell us a little bit about how you got started at Northville High School and how you got into the tennis program there.
Well, basically, I was at Lake Western for 10 years coaching. That started because of a science teacher that said, hey, you should come join us. And so I joined, and he was there for probably 2 years, took over that program. And then after the 2 years, I took over and I did guys and girls tennis there until 2018. Left to go do some other things, and then ended up back in education again. And I was over at Northville High School, and coincidentally, they were looking for a new coach there. I was actually signed on as a JV coach, but the actual coach that we had was had different interests, and I took over the JV job in probably May, and by July of that summer, 2 months later, I became the head coach. So, and then I started there, and I've been there for 3 years now. And in the 3 years I've been there, the first year we ended up third in the state. Last 2 years we've been second in the state. So, way different program than when I was at Lake Western.
Yeah. So you've had a lot of success there. What sets your program apart from other programs?
The interesting thing with Northville, when I was at Lake Western, we would have 20 guys show up, period. That's it. And we field normally a varsity team is consisted of 12 to 14 guys usually. And when I got to Northville, first day of tryouts, we had 80 kids. That's 80 kids showing up for tennis. So we ended up breaking it down into 3 different teams. We had 2 JV teams and a varsity team. And the interesting part about it is that the 80 guys that we had, 75 of them had played before. So it wasn't like, at Lake Western, your tryout was, I'm going to hand you a tennis racket. If you grab it, you're on the team. If you choose not to grab it, then we'll move on to the next thing. But at Northville, there are 75 of those 80 kids that were with experience. And, of course, the hardest part was now you got to whittle those down and try to figure out who's, you got to get your top 14 to 16, because we carry a couple extras. And so it's just very, very different environment.
So now, geographically, the schools are very close. They're only, 20 minutes apart, door to door.
Yeah.
What do you attribute 20 versus 80 showing up to tryouts?
One of the things that, at Western when I was there, I would actually be recruiting in the hallway. And, we struggled with players, so I would go to the baseball team. I'd go to the soccer teams. I'd go to the lacrosse teams and try to recruit people from there. Here, they just show up. In our area, there are some sports club, Novi Sports Club in particular, that, where they're doing summer programs, and there's like the Northville Parks and Rec that runs kids. But most of it is that these are all, these are kids that they're just doing it on their own. I mean, and it's every year I show up. I don't know. I have no idea who's showing up. I don't know what kind of talent I've got. I know my returning talent, but I don't know, again, if I'm getting my middle school kids, who's coming, whether they're good, whether they're not good. And it's my job. It's when our tennis season starts, we have basically 1 week to whittle down to my numbers, and then we start competing the next day. So 5 days of tryouts, and I'm doing 3 to 5 hours depending on, how many teams are doing of tryouts, because I do my returning varsity separately. So basically 5 hours of tryouts a day. And then, of course, on top of all that, figuring out who your varsity athletes are, then you got to figure out where they're going to play in a lineup. And then, once that's finished, 2 days later, we're competing.
So take us through the schedule, like when your tryouts start, and then when the season ends, and what do you do in the off season to get your athletes ready for the season?
Right now, I don't do a lot. The one thing about tennis that's different from coaching, I coached with Dave for 10 years as a basketball coach, and he and I talk about this all the time. And when you go to basketball, you're there, you're 2 hours of you're totally focused and totally into it for the entire time. Tennis, though, it's much more about managing. So I get kids that are coming in, and my good players, they all have private coaches. And their private coaches through whichever club. And it's, I mean, Novi Sports is one, but there's Franklin, there's a whole bunch. I even had one kid this year that was driving to Saginaw for private lessons. So my job is to be successful at tennis. You have to, when I got there, I'm like, we're going to play all the top teams in the school. I don't care where they are in the state. We're going. And so, that means we're traveling to Troy, we're traveling to Bloomfield, we're traveling to the west side of the state. We have tournaments there. Anywhere, and again, I'll go look every year at the end of the year. Okay, who are the top 10 teams? And I will make sure I'm contacting them and making sure that we play it. My job mostly with the tennis team is to make sure that I get my kids in front of the best talent in the state, and then you battle it out. And then the big difference with like basketball is a tournament. So you have team versus team, and you work your way through brackets and all that. Tennis, it comes down to one tournament at the end of the year. And so the whole part of the season is trying to improve your win-loss average so that you get higher seeds, and gives you an easier route to the championship. And that's, and again, so that's mostly what I do. I probably have 20 days maybe of actual training, and the rest is competition. So, and the idea is to, again, try to figure out where you're going to get your guys seated, because the higher seeds you get, the farther chance you get. And in the tournament, it's just like every match you win, you get a point. Whoever gets the most points at the end of the tournament wins the tournament.
With that many players, trying out and on the team and such, and that high level of players, parents have got to be a challenge.
Yeah, there's always stories, because one of the things about tennis is, even though you don't think it's a costly sport, you have a racket, shoes, and clothes, and that's it. So it's not really a lot of cost. Where it comes into is all of the money they're spending on these private lessons and the places they got to go, and they're not real happy when you tell them that your kid's not good enough after you've sunk all this money into their education. So it gets to be quite a challenge. But the one thing about tennis that for me is easy, it's like I have a simple rating schedule. If I beat you, I'm better than you. If you beat me, you're better than me. And so we do a lot in the beginning. We play head to head, and I get to a point in our season, we have to have our lineup set usually by Labor Day. So that gives us about 3 weeks to settle everything. And, at that point, we're like, okay, here we're done. So we play, not only are we competing against other teams, we compete a lot against each other. And, I get kids that'll just, can we be done? I don't want to play matches anymore. I'm just tired. Let's just go practice and do this. And so it's pretty intense in the beginning. And again, there are a lot of unhappy people at the end, but again, it's if you beat the person ahead of you, you get their spot. That's just how it works.
So on your staff, do you have a supporting staff from a coaching perspective?
Yeah, I do have. Again, right now we're running 3 teams. I have 2 JV teams and 1 varsity team. I have an assistant for me, who is actually the girls' varsity coach. And then I have 2 JV coaches. This year we're actually thinking about switching it to just 2 teams. But the problem is if I go to a 25 to 30 member JV team, there are a lot of other schools that we have that just don't have teams that size. And one of the rules, like with tennis, is if I bring 30 guys to a match, all 30 guys will play. If I have a school if I'm playing a school that has 10 guys on their team, well, those guys are going to have to play 3 times. And so it gets to be a challenge to, and one of the things, if I'm going to bring a kid to a team, they're going to, we get 16 days of competition and then 4 scrimmages that we can do. And this past year we were full max on all schedules, and all these kids got to play. Last thing I want to do is bring a kid onto a program and not give them a chance to compete. So, and those are kind of where the challenges fall, is on a JV level.
So let me ask you this. So we've talked about different sports and their popularity at the high school level. Some sports seem to be growing, some sports seem to be declining. Where do you see the state of tennis going at this time?
To me, let me just give you a little backstory on how tennis works here. And this is going to, again, I have 80 guys showing up for tryouts. In my school, we are very diverse. It's a lot of, we have, Middle Eastern kids, we have Far Eastern kids, we have, it's very mixed group of students. And the one thing about high school tennis, I've coached for 13 years now. I have had 2 people that have played college tennis. And as good as we are as a tennis team, my guys are not good enough to compete at a college level. One of the things, if you were to go look at college rosters, it's very international. One of the things that I also undertook for a while is at Cleary University, they were trying to start up a new tennis team. And they had asked me to come in, and I did my best to try to start this program. And one of the things that I would do is I spent a lot of time on recruiting websites. Be Recruited, I can't think of the other one, something SA or
NCSA.
NCSA, yeah, it was one of them. And then there was a third one that I'd go through. And you'd sit there and you'd go looking through all of these player profiles and contacting people. And I found a lot of interest. I had kids that wanted to come from South Africa. I had a kid from Spain that wanted to come. But here we're going to like Cleary College, which is a very small division. I think they were Division II, right? NAIA, yeah. And and then of course these are all these international kids coming across, and obviously they're going to want to get paid. So they want their full scholarships. They want all of this. And when you're at a small school like that, there's just that money wasn't available. This year, I have my number one tennis player, a gentleman by the name of Sachiv Kumar, who has been, since I've been there, 3 years, state champion all 3 years. This year, he has became Mr. Tennis in the state of Michigan, and has a scholarship now to University of Wisconsin, which is, like I was stating earlier, is quite an accomplishment, because you're not competing against people in the country. You're not competing against people in the state. You're competing against people in the entire world. And you look at these college rosters. And the other thing with college is there's, in high school, we have 4 singles teams or 4 singles flights, 5 doubles flights. In college, you have six guys. And when they play a match, each guy will play one round of singles, and then they'll play, then they pair up into doubles teams. So there's nine matches. And again, so the teams are small. They're coming from all over the place. And the thing that I find fascinating is with the culture that I have at my school. I mean, if you follow professional tennis these days, the United States is not, we're getting there. A lot of the players that are getting there. But the population of the students that I have playing tennis, they're never going to, when high school ends, they're done. They want to, most of these kids, last year my team, we had an average grade point of 3.87, so they're very smart kids. They're going to University of Michigan, they're going to Michigan State, they're going to Harvard, they're going to all of these schools. And the reality is one of the things I always try to ask the kids, are you playing tennis? I mean, do you want to play tennis to get recruited, or do you want to go to a school and then try to play tennis for that school? So it's a big difference. And most of these kids are like, well, I'm going to go to Michigan, but I want to play on their team. And the reality is they're just not good enough. I mean, I had last year the Wayne State coach come up to me. And Wayne State, you're thinking, okay, this is a smaller school. And, we were number 2 in the state last year. And he's like, I don't want any of your players. They're not good enough. And which to me was kind of a shock. And we're talking about a smaller, what are they, Division 3? 2? Division 2 school.
So from our background's kind of on the baseball world, there's different metrics that, exit velocity and miles per hour and 60-yard dash times. When the Wayne State coach says what he said, is there certain metrics that he's looking at, or something that they're an intangible that, that he didn't see? Or
Well, I think a lot of it with tennis, it goes to the USTA, United States Tennis Association. So these kids, when they're playing tournaments, and I talk about our off-season stuff, one of the things that we try to encourage is for the kids to go out and play tournaments. And in these tournaments, they get what's called a UTR rating, which is Universal Tennis Rating, I think is what it stands for. And as they play and as they win, that UTR goes up and down. And at Wall Lake Western, if I mention a UTR to a kid, they just look at me going, what is that? Is some sort of food combination or something? But at Northville, these kids, they knew what their UTR was. They knew what the UTR was of the kids that are playing. And and so that's where, I think from a college point of view, that's kind of where they're starting from. My number one player this year, I don't know what he ended up at, but I know at one point he was ranked 80th in the country. And my guess is he's probably higher than that, but I haven't really looked at it. Like I said, to me, when I played tennis back in the 70s, it's like, if I beat you, I'm better than you. That's how I rank myself. But here, it's all about these numbers. So I'm sure coaches are going through and they're looking at people's UTR ratings, And then that's kind of where they're starting from. And then it's going out and, finding these kids and then trying to find a way to get them to your school. You'll have at our tournaments, sometimes you'll have scouts, but I'm sure it's not like baseball where you probably have, I know I was listening to one of your podcasts about showcases and how much fun you have with those.
Yes.
We don't really have things like that. So, to be honest with
But
it.
your tournaments in the off season are kind of similar to that in a way.
Yeah.
Is there a specific tournament that a lot of the college coaches go to look for kids, or
No,
is
I
it just all over?
I think it's all over. The gentleman that's going to Wisconsin, I never talked to the coach, never even met the coach. This was all done, mostly probably through his private coach. And I would bet that a lot of, if you're recruiting a kid from to college, your private coach is probably out there doing all the recruiting. I know Dave and I have talked a lot about how to, with your recruiting thing that he does with the baseball kids in the fall, of how to reach out and how to get in contact with these. So I'm sure that there's a lot of advocating going on by each player's individual coach that they have. Me as a high school coach, I write recommendations here and there, and I'll get some of the smaller schools that'll call me to ask me, and I put them in touch with the kids, and then just kind of let them go from there. But again, the usual answer is, I don't want to go to Albion. I'm going to Michigan. I'm going to something better school.
So what? Obviously, you're highly ranked. When you go into the season, what are some of your goals? Like this upcoming season, what are your goals, and what will you measure as a successful season in your mind?
For me, the successful season is, and one of the things that I find very interesting, and I'm going to kind of deviate a little bit. Me as a tennis coach, as a high school tennis coach, I don't really care about titles. I don't care about, I kind of do hanging banners in the rafters. But my whole goal is I want to teach a sport that's a lifetime sport for kids. I want them 10 years from now to be still playing. I want them, 10, 15 years from now to just think back of their high school career and how much fun they had. One of the things that when I took over at Northville, this was probably the most interesting thing that I've had. At Wall Lake Western, we were nobody. Nobody knew who we were. Our tennis program was really bad. But I had some kids that I got, and I cultivated them and made it a fun environment for them. And then one thing that happened is that these kids started to have fun. Then more kids came on, and then more kids came on. It was like a snowball rolling down a hill, and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And by the time that I left Western, and again, it wasn't because of anything other than life changes. We had won 3 regional titles in a row, and we were a highly respected program at that point. So it's just, it's about empowering kids to go out and do, just to have fun. That's really all I wanted to do. When I got to Northville, that first year, which I can get into the story of the first day of tryouts, which was rather entertaining, but we had a reputation of just being, because one of the things that I find very interesting with tennis, it's self-refereed or if I'm playing Dave Walther and we're playing tennis, he's calling my shots in or out, I'm calling his shots in or out. I may or may not choose to be honest. He may or may not choose to be honest as well. And so because we're self-officiating, there's a lot of, things that could go on. And Northville had a reputation of being cheaters. Our tennis courts were a lot smaller than any others because, obviously our lines were moved in and, balls that might have been in, we were calling out and all that. I actually had my first year, 3 or 4 times I'd show up at tournaments and coaches would look at me and say, if I knew you were here, we wouldn't be here because your parents are awful, your kids are awful, which to me was something that just wasn't aware of. So there was some re-educating, I could say, that first year to a point where probably the most difficult thing I had to do was, we were right across the street from Novi High School. Big rivals, Novi, us, Catholic Central, all the things. And I actually forfeited a tennis match in the regional finals because the parents were so bad. We had a kid that on the other team that went down with a medical thing because he was dehydrated. And, the rule was you get 20 minutes to get the trainer. And we were at a different site, so we weren't at Northville or Novi. This was a Novi kid. And, which we're found. We were at Plymouth Canton, 3 schools there. There was a trainer there. We couldn't find him, couldn't get him to the court. And then once there's a protocol, 5 minutes, this is like, I forget the exact numbers, but 3 minutes to treat, or 3 minutes to diagnose, 5 minutes to treat, and then after that, if they can't play, they're done. And while we're trying to find the trainer, Mom and Dad went nuts and were screaming at us, screaming at me, and it got down to a point where Mom was kind of going off the deep end, and I told her, "You need to shut up."
Well, what was her
because
what
the
she
time,
upset about all
the time, because
Okay.
it was like, well, and the way this match had gone is my guy had won the first set, he lost the second set, and was down 4-1 in the third set. They played obviously 6 games, and she felt that he should win the match, and because this was taking long, and we're following just the rules of it. And she just kept going on and on. I says, if you don't shut up, I'm going to forfeit this match. And she said, go ahead. So I did. And then I walked off the court. And, and this is a thing where, trying to win that conference tournament, was a big deal. And at that point, it was really came down to like a match between us and Novi. And at that point, it was 4-3. We were leading. You got to get to 5 to win it. So that made it 4-4. I had one more match to go. And so everything was in jeopardy. And at that point, I had to kind of remove myself from the situation because, she was following me and screaming at it. Fortunately, the one remaining match went into a late third set, and we ended up winning it, winning the conference. Sad part about it was that the kid that went down, so we finished the match, went through the award ceremony, finished the award ceremony. That kid was still down on the court and hadn't recovered. And that, to me, was the sad part about it. This is not what it's supposed to be about. If she had just waited 5 more minutes, everything would have just taken its course. But that was the kind of, thing, because winning that tennis match for that family was way more important than, the rest of the world. So, like you asked about the parents. So that's kind of the re-education part. Of course, once I did that, things kind of snapped in line pretty quickly after that. But anyways.
So how do you manage the expectations throughout the season of the parents and the players? Because it sounds like you have very high expectations, not only from the players, but from the parents as well. How do you manage those expectations throughout the year?
I think a lot of it is just making sure that you state them up front. Again, and the state for us, it's you're going to be fair. You're going to be honest. You're going to be, if there's, we always say if when in doubt, ball is in. If you're not sure, it's a good call. The other issue, one of the big things I've had is, because of so many guys that we have, I have seniors, and there's a lot of seniors that are not going to make varsity. And and again, what's the purpose of having seniors on a JV team? Because to me, JV team they're there to support the varsity. And again, things go, we don't have freshman teams, but like in basketball, freshman team builds the JV builds the varsity. So one of the things that I've done over the past years is it's like right up front. Here's the deal. If you don't make varsity as a senior, you're cut. It's just, that's what we're going to do. And so you lay out expectations like that. You tell them we're going to be fair. Unfortunately, there's enough parents still around that knew that I canned that match that will knows that, and I'll do it again. It's not, to me, your dignity and fairness of the game can't be jeopardized.
This episode of Two Average Daves is brought to you by our sponsor, FullCountGloveRelacing.com. Get your glove back in the game. Don't take your glove to a nice kid at a sporting goods store who doesn't know a thing about glove relacing. Have a baseball guy fix your baseball glove. Reach out to Brian Spence, and it's for little as $20, he will get your glove back in the game. It's full-count-glove-relacing.com. So going back to your senior, the policy is that if you don't make the team, you're cut. What about for a junior that is not good enough to make the varsity?
Junior, I will, if they fit into the top, if they make it through, again, we're started with 80 guys. And I narrowed it. This year we had we had 46 total. So there's a lot that get cut. If they make it into that top 46, I'll keep them. One of the things that I've seen with tennis is you'll get guys that come in, have some skills, have some ability, but if they put in the work in the off season, they can make that jump. They can fit into a lineup, and you try to encourage them to go out and do that. We do 2 summer clinics. We trying to do this year. We're gonna start doing some summer work or some winter workouts starting in probably a week or so, and try to encourage them to get into tournaments. I mean, a lot of it is just for these kids is you got to get out, you got to play, you got to compete. Because one of the things that for me as a tennis coach, I can teach skills. I can teach you how to hit a forehand. I can teach you how to backhand. I can give you game strategies. But if you're not, I can't teach you how to compete in a match. So you have to get out. You have to do it. You have to, see what your skills are. My job, the hardest part is as a tennis coach. In basketball, you could coach all the time. I mean, when I coached, with Dave, I'd be screaming the whole time. And it's, I'd never screamed at kids, but I'm like, hey, do this, watch this, go, and I can, tennis, when the point's going on, you can't say anything. I can't say anything during a game. I have to coach my parents how to be parents. You can't give, if your son's out there playing and it's like, oh, hey, you gotta bend down or you gotta, hit it to his backhand or that, and I gotta go yell at the parents. You can't say those things. That's considered coaching. The only time that I get to coach kids is on a 30-second changeover, which means that they, every odd game they switch sides. So I got 30 seconds to, put whatever wisdom into them that I can. So, there's not a lot that I can do, which that's even a little bit different from when I was coaching, because when I played in high school, it was like coach would come, beginning of the match, good luck, let me know what the score is when you're done. And that was it. So there's not a lot you can do. So you have to try to prepare them ahead of time. And again, the more experience you can give them competing, you can sit there, I can film a match, and then afterwards we can sit down and we can break it down and say, okay, here's what you did, here's what you could have done. Now whether they remember to do that the next time, good luck. So I'm going to deviate on something here, is that, and this is kind of the difference. At college level, the coach can be on the courts. See, like at high school, usually you have a bank of courts. Walled Lake Western was set up where you had 4 courts, a walkway, another 4 courts. Northville, I've got 10 courts in a row. And, the hard part for me is if someone's messing up on court 1 and I'm down on court 10, there's nothing I can do about it. At a college level, the college coach can actually be on the court, can be walking around, can be talking to the players at all time. The only requirement with them is just don't disrupt play. Just if it's flowing, keep it going. But you can walk around and do that. This is one of the things with at least high school tennis anyways, that's a whole lot different. That sort of model should be in high school as well, because, these are the kids that need the instruction the most.
Yeah, they need more
right. You get to the college.
Encouragement or instruction or whatever.
Yeah. And it's so there's I know it's deviating a little bit, but so that to me is
that specific point, does that come up in MHSA rules and what is what's the pushback on making that change?
I've not been in those meetings, so I'm not really sure why people disagree, but that's come up a lot of times that we need to do that. You need to allow high school coaches to be more involved with these kids, but for whatever reason, they just can't seem to get it passed. And I don't know, and I really don't know why that would be. It makes more sense to me because this is where you need it. This is where, especially with the JV kids even.
So pardon my ignorance. So one of the things we talked about in a previous podcast is about, in our world, in baseball, there's no formal training program. In soccer, they have a certification program. Is there anything in tennis for coaches to be developed and to get a certification or a credential?
Yeah, there is. There's what they call the USPTA, which is U.S. Professional Tennis Association. So you can be, in order to be considered a professional tennis coach, you have to go through, and there's a whole series of online and, testing that you have to do. And then there's also physical testing. So you literally have to be on a court. And, one of the things, an example might be that, okay, if you want to be to get through this and you're going to teach a serve, can you hit a topspin serve? Can you hit a flat serve? Can you hit a slice serve? Can you hit a slice serve to the ad side in the corner? Can you have a slice serve up the middle? And you actually have to, along with the written test you have to actually do an on-court test as well. And you got to be able to produce, can you hit 7 out of 10 serves in, and if you don't pass that, then you don't get certified. So if you see someone that says they're a certified professional, they've gone through some, they have actually gone through a lot of stuff to get to that.
So I want to circle back a little bit. You mentioned earlier, especially since we were talking about college players, that the international players that are coming over to American college are much better than the American players. What gives them the advantage? What makes them better?
I think a lot of it is culture. I mean, and there, I don't think. I mean, tennis, and I could be just speaking out of, who knows what, but here it's not. I mean, what are our major sports? Football, baseball, hockey, tennis. Does that be considered into that? No. I mean, you think about it. So it's not from a culture-wise, but you go to a place like, I'm trying to think of where some of my kids are from. Well, my number one guy's from Sri Lanka. And, their sports are, one of the big ones I know is cricket. I think tennis is big there. You go to, obviously, Europe. If you think about a lot of the top professionals now, they're all, in that area. Djokovic is Serbian. Rafa Nadal is from Spain. Roger Federer was from Swiss, I think. So the programs there, I mean, it's much more, Djokovic, who's the number one player in the world right now for tennis, he would be like a Michael Jordan here. I mean, everybody in Serbia knows who he is. He's got billboards, he's got this. Here, who have we had? I mean, even our best tennis players. You look at John McEnroe, Jimmy Connors back in the day, and some of these. I mean, they're, you would never find them.
Sampras,
Agassi. I mean, a lot of these guys. It's just not. We're not. Tennis is not valued as highly here as it would be over there.
So if I'm a high school kid, freshman, sophomore maybe in high school, and I'm showing some promise, what can I do to get myself ready to compete and actually potentially go play in college? Is there specific things that I can do?
My first thing I would suggest to someone that was doing that is get a coach, get a private coach, get private lessons to do. And that's someone that you can get. There's a few programs in the area where they can get elite training, and I would say go to that and get someone that's skilled in what they do, that can sit there and work with you. Because one of the best things about tennis, I mean, you guys know baseball, but in tennis, I can literally tell whether a guy's got a chance in 2 minutes. All I got to do is just watch them hit. I can look at how their form is, how they're hitting, and what they're doing, and then I'll know quickly how whether they have a shot at making a team or not. The hard part for me is once you know who these guys are, they still got to go out and beat the people they need to beat. So that's why the whole trial process goes. But for me, it's easier. Like when I was working at Cleary College, it's actually Cleary University. Probably got to get that right. It was Cleary College, but it's Cleary University now. But all the recruiting I would do, it's just like, these kids that are on, these recruiting websites, you got to send a video. I mean, just give me 5 minutes looking at the video, and then I'll give you an idea whether I'm interested or not. So for the new players that are getting into it, so you got to get a coach that can teach you that. And then the next thing is you got to play. You got to get into the USTA. You got to start doing tournaments. You got to, build your ranking, and then you've got to get, at least here at the high school level, there's a lot of really good talent. You got to be able to succeed there. Again, my guy this year that's going to Wisconsin, I mean, he's not going there because of his high school career. He's going there because of his USTA career.
So one of the things that the Williams sisters did that transformed the game is they put a lot into their strength and their training, their off-season, their workouts.
Yes.
What, from a high schooler's perspective, how much do they have to invest in the off-season on getting bigger, faster, stronger?
They should invest in a lot, but a lot of them, I mean, the hard part is you guys have dealt with high school kids. There's a big difference between a 9th grader and a 12th grader. I mean, 9th graders are still little boys, 12th graders are more men. One of the things with Sachev is first year that I had him, he was actually ranked 5th in the state, seeded 5th in the tournament. And, and he was very good. Fought his way through and ended up in a very long 3-set match, won the state title. He probably should have lost in the semis because the guy he was playing was beating him, and then pulled up with a medical, and he ended up, couldn't finish the match. He finished, but it just wasn't the same person. But one of the things with him that impressed me, and I thought that, he was a sophomore at the time, came back the next year, and again, I've told you how, I go and I pick the best teams. Very first match, I picked to play against the guy that he beat in the finals. And again, he won the first set, and another guy's name was Clayton. My guy's name is Sachiv. Clayton won the second set, and it was Sachiv was actually down 5-4 in the third set, came back to win 7-5. So the very first match, we had him play against Clayton again. He lost that match. Then he went out the rest of the season, and sure enough, played him again in the finals. And one of the things that, I thought with Sachiv is, I know he's doing a lot of these tournaments, but he just kept getting better and better. This year, did the same thing. He was 28-0 this year, played the same guy in the state tournament, in the finals again, and beat him again. But the one thing that impressed me about, the one thing like with tennis, and I'm sure you guys can testify to this with baseball, when someone hits a ball, you can tell just by the sound of the crack of the bat what kind of hit it was, right? There's that thing. I've watched enough professional tennis, and you get guys that are finally getting to that level where they're getting to college, and when they hit the ball, there's just this pop, and it's just something like you wouldn't see in a normal, and you just hear it, and you can and it's like one of these things you'd have to stop and look and like, oh, and then you watch the guy. Sachiv had got to that point where,
It made it literally a different sound.
Literally different sound. Just, it's again, watching, you guys watch enough baseball, when you hear somebody cracking the bat, right away that was a good hit, not a good hit, that was a good swing, because you can just hear it. And so, he's at that level, and he just kept getting better and better. This year, to be honest, I think he cakewalked through a lot of it. It's kind of funny because you'd watch him, he'd play, he wouldn't care, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, I'm done. And then he'd step up his game and finish it quick. And he had that ability. That's how you could kind of tell for him, okay, this is, he can make that jump. So 2 years ago, he played a kid from Green Hills. Kid's name was Mert Oral. Ended up being named Mr. Tennis for the year, best tennis player in the state of Michigan. And when Sachiv, who had won the state tournament at Division I, Green Hills is a Division III school, Sachiv is playing for a Division I school. Sachiv played this kid, and the kid beat him 6-0, 6-0. This kid went to Michigan and sat the bench. Was not good enough to make Michigan's lineup. So that kind of gave me an idea, high school level's at one level. College is just a whole different ballgame. With you guys in baseball, how can you tell? How do you know when a kid's ready to play college ball? To me, that's the interesting. How do you know? How do you know when they're getting there? What do you guys go through?
It's a combination of things. One, it's pure metrics of numbers that they put up, but it's also you could tell a lot by their attitude and their effort, and if they're going to put the work in to get there. Because, like you said, it's a whole different set of requirements that are needed to be successful at the next level. So going from high school to college, same thing. It's you go from a boy to a man at that point. And then you got 4 years of, from 18 to 22 to develop. But you could tell a lot by, the work they're willing to put in. And I've heard somebody equate, what the difference between single A, double A, and triple A is? Not a whole lot. It's the effort level, and then getting to the major leagues, same thing. It's the effort level to get there, because they're all good players at that point.
Yeah, and that's been my problem the last few years with Sachiv. I have nobody on my team that he can compete with. And so I've always had this rule, as a coach, it's like you need to be there. It's your team, you got to be there, you got to be on the court, you got to do this. But having him show up at our practices is, what are you going to do with him? There's nobody that can compete with him. So, the past couple of years, it's like he would go out, and this is one of the things you say about kids that are, you want to develop them, go find a practice partner. And the funny part is that the gentleman that Clayton Anderson, that he played 3 straight years and beat him, that was his practice partner. So even when they're not, which is great because they're the same level, and they can, the matches they all had were just long drawn out. So find somebody, if you want to be that next level, find someone that's at your level, or most likely probably a little bit better than you, and just go play with them.
Look, I don't want to tell you how to coach, but I think I got it. I think you take Sasha, if you put one hand behind his back, and then let him play against
No,
you.
you got to play left-handed. So, but I think that's what a lot of it is, because I can't. I have 8 weeks or 10 weeks, in a high school tennis season. So there's not, and I get them for that short period of time, and I just have to make the best of it.
So from when you started in 2008-ish to now, you talked about the parents and kind of resetting expectations with them. If you look at 2008 versus now, what's the biggest difference that you can see?
To me, the biggest difference at a high school level is, especially now, and Dave can attest this, he's a teacher, with COVID, school shootings, all of the stuff that's been going on. These kids are, you think about some of these kids that are graduating today and what they went through in high school. Like, there's a whole class that never got to go to a senior prom, never got to go to, this, that, or the other thing. And it's just their whole, to me, I find it, and it's kind of funny, it's going to date myself here, but things that are, to them, are normal. Like when I was in, elementary school, air raid drills was a big deal. So we had to learn about it. Air raid drills. Today, they got to learn about Alice drills, which is, how to respond to, active shooters. And to them, this is normal. I mean, this is just what they go through. I mean, I know Dave has had it in his school. We've had it in our school when kids die for this, that. It's devastating. It's devastating to everyone. And, and so these kids, I think there's just so much going on, with just to get through a day with these kids. To me, as a coach of a sports team, just putting all that extra pressure on these kids. Again, in my case, I've got 80 guys. One's going to play college. I've had I probably coached 300, 400, 500 tennis players. I've had 2, and one of them I didn't even expect. You remember Brandon Murdy?
Oh yeah.
He actually played for Albion, and he was low on my tennis team, but he played it at Albion, and then Sasha was the only other one that I've ever had play college. So to me, it's not about developing college athletes, because I'm just not doing it. So for me, it's more about, I need to make the environment fun. I need to make sure that they have a great experience. Do you remember a guy by the name of Sam Halpern? Would have been a student probably 10 years ago, maybe not.
Not off the top of my head.
So this is the interesting story that happened to me over Christmas. Now, Sam, at the time that I had him, high JV player at best. This was at Lake Western, by the way. High JV player at best. Overweight, slow, just barely enough skills to play the game. One of the things that I always tried to do is, I think, people will argue with me one way or the other, but I think earning a varsity letter at a school is a big deal. You get to be part of the club. You get to be recognized. So there are certain matches we play against that, you're going to play them. For us at Western, it was Waterford Kettering, Waterford Mott. You're going to play them. The match is going to be over in 45 minutes. And, they're going to win 5 games total. So those are easy wins for the team. So what I would do is I would take a lot of the JV kids, bring them up to varsity, give them a chance to earn their varsity letters and all this. So this kid, Sam, like I said, he wasn't the model athlete. So we put him up against Waterford Kettering, one of the worst team in the division at the time. He ended up playing a 3-hour match against this kid. And it was painful. I mean, we were all sitting there, can this just get over and over and over? And it finally did. Of course, we were all done in 45 minutes, the whole team sitting there. But they're cheering this kid on, and we're helping him. Hadn't heard from him in 10 years. And then this past Christmas, I got this text from him telling me that he was thanking me for being his coach in high school, and that he is now a coach. He's picked up his game. He's lost weight, gotten into shape, is playing. Plays, I guess. He got some, there's a ranking that he used, and then he's actually coaching a girls team in Colorado and has won a state tournament. And it's, when I look back, it's like, that's why you do it. It's not for, again, I love hanging a banner in the school, and Dave and I, it was funny too, because when I was at Wall Lake Western, we'd win these regional titles, and we have these cabinets, and we'd win these trophies, which were cool, because the MHSA trophies are, they're all wooden and carved, and so we'd win these trophies, and then I left Western and went back to the real world and worked in business, and it was about a year later. Dave says, "Hey, you want your trophies back?" And I'm like, "They're in a box in this closet," and I'm like, "Oh, I'm glad they're displayed in the school." So I said, "Yeah," and you get them. So they're actually down in my basement. They're kind of cool, but again, it's nobody knows, nobody cares. The banners are cool. One of the things I like to try to do, go to Wall Lake Western, for instance. How many tennis players are on the Wall of Fame? Maybe one, maybe.
And it was probably from the 70s.
Yeah. They don't, at Northville, it's I've got more of them now, obviously, because we're getting all-state athletes, and that's kind of my goal. I wanted to see if we can get athletes to get them up on the wall, so when they come back 10 years, hey, look, this is me, kind of thing. But other than that, it's about developing a culture and, to have fun. And like in Sam's case, it blew me away. It was like, he sent that to me, and I'm like, I didn't even know that kid was interested, so you guys know, you're a coach, you've been around a lot of people. You don't know who you're influencing and where that's going to go in the long term.
Those text messages, when they come in, that bridges you to the next one, to the next text message, and hopefully it's a week and not 6 months or a year, but that's what keeps all of us going, I think.
Yeah, it keeps me going, and it's like I run into the weird part now is, I've been coaching for a long time, and when you're at the local watering hole and a kid comes up to you, "Hey, coach, how's it going?" I'm like, "You're drinking now?" It's like, You're that old? What? But that to me is kind of the biggest thing, is when they're still coming up, and I'm sure, Dave, you got this all the time, and you got kids that come up, "Hey, coach, how's it going?" And they remembered you from, of course, good luck trying to remember who they were sometimes, but and that's what it's about. So it's about making an experience for kids that they can reflect back on.
Yeah, we've talked about that a lot, and because we've all been coaching for a long time, and when you're feeling down and you're frustrated and everything, and you're just wondering why you do it, and then you suddenly, that one text message dings through, and it can just be a simple thank you. It can be something just very simple, and it just rejuvenates you and re-energizes you, and it keeps you going, and that's literally the reason you do it, just for that simple thank you.
Yeah, and it's especially like like winter seasons that we used to do together. It's like they're long, and like with basketball that we coached together, it was a year-long thing. And you guys, even with baseball, it's you look at kids nowadays, their season is spring, which is compacted. You got summer ball, you got winter workouts, you got hitting, catching, all it doesn't stop. And it's as a coach, it's just like, it is such a grind. It's for me, almost matches are some of the easiest times, because I do the least. I get to just walk around and watch. That was like this year with Sachiv, which is one of the coolest things that has ever happened, and it's probably, this is the only time it's ever happened where I was no longer a coach. I just became a fan. We're in the state finals. We're at, where were we at? We were in Midland? We're in Midland at this tennis facility, and we had a bank of courts. There was 4 of them. I had 3 of my guys playing at once, and it was to a point where, okay, we're here, we've done all of this. We're just going to sit and watch. So me and the other coaches, we sat there. Parents came up, sat there. Rest of the kids came. We just cheered. And we watched, and it was the coolest thing. It's like these kids made it to this thing. There's not much I'm going to tell them. They're not even going to listen to me anyways. But they're here, and it's like, so we had 3 guys playing for the finals. 2 of them won it. 1 of them lost in the. But it was the coolest thing, when the coach just becomes a fan. I don't have to do anymore. I'm just here and enjoying what I'm watching. I'm sure you guys run into that too. Some of you are just, things are working, and and the team's playing well, and there's not much. You just sit back and go, this is cool. Let's go. So.
Yeah, we run into that I think in the fall ball when we're playing the college teams, and watching these kids go out there and perform at their best, playing against these college teams, trying to impress the college coaches and such. And sometimes it is really cool to sit back and watch them give it their all and perform at their highest level.
Yeah, I've got it the best here, because I can't do that during the high school season or the summer season, but in the fall, I can do more of that. Sit back and kind of, because we're doing less quote unquote coaching and more helping them get to that next level. Yeah. So we're not doing the X's and O's. And so, yeah, we get the fall. It's nice because you get to, really see what the other team is doing, the college team that we're playing, but then also watch these kids. And some of them, they just grind it out. It's no big deal. Other one, they have big eyes for the first game, and then they grow after the second, third game. Then they ease into it. So it's cool to see those little moments and those little growth paths.
Yeah, and I would imagine, and even in my case, it's just more. You as a coach, you're not a coach. You're just a cheerleader. You got a kid that's struggling. Hey, get over here. Let's talk. You got this. You got what you need to be here. It's kind of like the old UCLA John Wooden would be like. First thing you do at practice, you're going to put your socks on. You're going to put your shoes on, and he's going to show you. Look, we can all do that. We go out there. We'll measure the height of the rim. It's all the same. And it's that thing, and just helping these kids mentally. Just hey, look, you got this. You've got the skill to be where you're at. In tennis, can you hit a forehand? Yep. Can you hit a backhand? Yep. Can you hit a serve? Yep. Okay, can you return a serve? Yep. You got the tools. You just got to use them. And then trying to, keep them positive because, the one thing like in tennis, it's, this is one thing I've never understood. It's like I'll go out and beat someone 6-0 and then I'll lose the next set 0-6. I'm like, how do you go from, that bad? And it's just all mental, it's like now you got to, the better players shorten it up. And so you just got to help a lot of these kids. It's like, okay, how do I minimize the disaster and maximize the good stuff. So.
All right, so I got one last question for you. Where do you see the program and yourself 5 years from now?
I want to continue to probably to coach. Right now I'm doing, my career, I've coached basketball, I've coached volleyball, I've coached soccer with my kids, I've done tennis. Right now the strange one is bowling, which, again, don't ask me why this is. At Northville, again, I had 80 kids at tennis tryouts. I've got 60 kids on the bowling team. But it's the, being with the kids, and when you get that good group of people that, it doesn't matter what we do, or, we're bottom of the league. We went out, we had a great tournament 2 weeks ago, and we're dead last. But the kids outperformed what they've been doing. So it's just, it's that same thing that we're, when you get that group of kids that just, they're fun to be around, they've got great attitudes, and you got that culture that's set right. It's just fun to show up and do that each and every day. Like I said, tennis for me is, I'm going to probably keep coaching it. That's a lot more stressful because obviously, we've been successful, and the expectations are high, and so you just got to keep working. And I don't know where I'm going to get my next superstar. I'm trying to see if I can get another year of eligibility out of Sacha, but stressful because obviously I know I may have to go there. Start recruiting there. I know, but if you got that group that's good and they're fun to be around and easy to work with, then you just keep going.
All right, so that wraps up today's podcast with Coach Bob Young from Northville High School. There's a lot of good things that came out of this today, and thanks for coming in.
I really enjoyed it. Thanks for the time.
Thank you very much.
This episode of Two Average Daves is brought to you by our sponsor, Full Count Glove Relacing. Get your baseball glove back in the game. Don't take your glove to a shoe repair business or expect a nice kid at the sporting goods store to know how to relace it. Have a baseball guy fix your baseball glove. Reach out to Brian Spence at 248-217-3979. And for as little as $20, he'll get your glove back in the game. Visit the Full Count website at full-count-glove-relacing.com.